So we are Wagon Wheel Title, a real estate title company. We have 6 attorneys on staff, and our pledge is that we make our real estate clients look like the stars that they are in their transactions, and we provide our clients with a first-class closing experience. On this podcast, we interview the best of the best in the real estate industry and bring real estate tips, tricks, stories, and news to anyone interested in real estate. We want to hear your questions going forward. You can email us at mailbag@wagonwheeltitle.com.
Right. Today's panelists are all interested in and working to solve issues of housing attainability, which is one of the greatest challenges facing Nashville and Middle Tennessee. We'll discuss what is currently being done and what opportunities our panelists may see that exist for further progress on this issue that I know that is very important to everybody in the room and everybody listening.
Okay, so first we'd like to introduce our panelists and tell you kind of a brief biography on each. So first, Trey Lewis. Trey, thank you for being here today. Well, our pleasure. So Trey is Vice President of Ole South Properties, Tennessee's largest privately owned home builder based in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. He's responsible for all sales and marketing functions for the company. Trey has served on the THDA Housing Industry Advisory Board, the Metropolitan Nashville Board of Equalization, which I believe has been in the news a little bit over the past 2 weeks. Right? And currently serves on the Cane Ridge High School Academy of Architecture and Construction Board and the Metropolitan Nashville Stormwater Management Commission. He also volunteers regularly with Second Harvest Food Bank and other community organizations. He's a past president and active board member of the Home Builders Association of Middle Tennessee, a national director for the National Association of Home Builders, and serves as federal political coordinator for Tennessee's 5th Congressional District on behalf of the National Association of Realtors. Trey also serves as chair of Build Tennessee Housing, a chapter of Home Builders Association of Tennessee, a licensed private pilot, and a USCG licensed 100 GRT captain. He enjoys aviation, boating, and travel. He and his wife, Beth, are both native Nashvillians and reside in Old Hickory. Welcome, Trey.
You are so fancy. I know, he's a pilot.
All of that and $1 will get you coffee at McDonald's.
And a boat captain.
All right. Our next panelist here in the middle, who I will try not to make fun of today, is Angie Lawless. Angie is a visionary entrepreneur, author, and podcaster based here in Nashville, Tennessee. As a co-founder of Wagon Wheel Title and Escrow, the company has facilitated now over 25,000 property closings, including some of Nashville's most iconic properties. She also helps lead Laughlin Insurance Advisors, Laughlin Place Partners, and the Laughlin Law Group, which are all in some way focused on real estate, insurance, and strategic investment decisions and risk mitigation. A Vanderbilt Law School graduate and former corporate attorney, Angie brings expertise and passion to her work, which extends to hosting this podcast, as well as climbing the charts. A 2024 Nashville Business Journal NBJ Woman of Influence honoree. She is also deeply involved in initiatives to address affordable housing and homelessness, including now serving on the Metro Homelessness Council. Is it a council or a commission?
Homelessness Planning Council.
Homelessness Planning Council.
All right, and so for anybody that knows us, you know that Angie is the gas pedal in this organization and is the reason that most things happen. So we're happy to have you on this side of the table usually and on that side of the table today.
That's the nicest thing he's ever said to me, guys. And
It's on video.
The flip side of that is that every gas pedal goes off of a cliff sometimes. So we've got EB over here, or emergency brake, that is... that's our counterbalance, and Brandon just is in the middle.
You're welcome.
Push back and forth.
All right, so our third panelist, Debra Beagle. So Debra is the CEO and managing broker and owner of the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage in Nashville, Tennessee, the #1 RE/MAX team globally, and the official real estate team of the NHL's Nashville Predators. As a national speaker and coach, she has spoken at events across the U.S. and Canada on business strategies, recruiting and growth, and operational excellence. Awarded Realtor of the Year by the Middle Tennessee Association of Realtors in 2022 and recognized by the Nashville Business Journal as one of Nashville's top female CEOs, executives, and women of influence in 2021, and by RE/MAX as 2018 U.S. Broker Owner of the Year. A multi-million-dollar producer, she oversees 190 agents, a staff of 42, and 13,000 plus transactions exceeding $5.5 billion in sales, and holds over 700 hours of real estate CE and 16 designations. Prior to becoming a realtor, Debra was a chemist, serving as an environmental consultant, conducting phase one.
This is long. We can shorten it, Steve.
I'm speechless.
It's okay.
I'm speechless. This is amazing.
You didn't know?
I mean, I did, but just like it's amazing. Conducting phase 1 and 2 due diligence for commercial real estate transactions. She has worked for several builders, overseeing from start to finish multiple new housing developments, and serves on several HOA boards in multiple states, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Mississippi. Her strengths are in contracts, negotiations, as well as market data and pricing. Fluent in Spanish with a Cuban mother, Debra has been recognized by the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals in the top 250 and ranked number 11 in 2017. Debra currently serves on the Residential Real Estate Council Board of Directors and is also a State of Tennessee RPAC trustee and treasurer, and an RPAC Platinum R Hall of Fame President's Circle major investor. She was, I'm not done.
Steve,
I'm
no,
not done.
This is like, this is an old one too.
I
so
am not
this is long.
stopping.
No.
She was also appointed to serve at the NAR level on the RPAC Fundraising Committee for 2024 as the Tennessee representative. In addition to her commitment to her clientele, agents, and staff, Debra is devoted to her community and humanitarian causes. RE/MAX Advantage is a Children's Miracle Network office raising over $600,000.
$750,000.
Amazing. For Children's Miracle Network, and is the #1 single office in the entire RE/MAX network. Debra, two things. Thank you for being here, and that is the greatest biography we have ever had.
That's really impressive. I also believe
Very.
we have another, I'm not sure what the official is, but Platinum RPAC member in our audience that we should recognize. Is that what we got, John Brittle?
Uh-huh. John back there.
Thank you
Yes.
for all that you do for the realtors.
Okay, so next up, we like to have a little icebreaker where the panelists can, just think things over, get to know them a little bit better. So the question today, which I think might be really, close to one of our panelists' hearts, is you have to pick one song to dance to publicly. And you can't say no, you're already on stage. What song do you want them to play?
But we don't have to dance publicly, right?
It's going to be really awkward if you don't.
Okay, mine would be Don't Stop Believing by Journey. So I'm probably dating myself on that one.
Love it.
Solid pick.
Oh, yeah, I could dance to that one all night long.
I really like the Pitbull song Celebrate. It's kind of,
I think anything you said after Pitbull was going to be a good choice.
So I've been struggling, Steve knows, so I am Dancing for Safe Haven, a very great charity that provides housing for homeless families. Will be in September 28th. And so if you want to come or donate, reach out to me. But yes, so I'm in the process right now of trying to figure out a song, and I'm so stumped on it. I have no idea, because it needs to tell a story, and it needs to be like theatrical, and it needs to do this, and it needs to do that. So I don't even know. I mean, last night I was going through the soundtrack to Rent and really enjoying all the songs, but then figuring out that maybe none of them applied. So I don't know. I'm stuck. Keep giving me all your ideas.
We're going to hold you to this. You're going to have to think. So even after this, we're going to have to find this out.
Yes, if anybody wants to send me an email, Angie@wagonmilltitle.com, tell me all your song picks, because I am dying.
All right, next up is Brandon's Market Minute.
Which never is a minute. All right, so this I think this is like a really interesting time right now in the market minute category here. So as we sit here today, it's the last week of June. It's a fitting time to look back at sort of the housing market the prior month. A lot of people, follow these things, but here's kind of some high-level data. So home sales in May, there were 3,164, which was a headline-grabbing decrease of 10.3% from the 3,509 home closings we saw in May of 24. The shift was subtle in April, but after this May data, the Tennessean's headline read, Nashville shifts to buyer's market amid sharp decline in home sales. And as other people may have seen, Redfin just named Nashville one of the top 10 buyer's markets, with sellers outnumbering buyers by 90%. While sales in the Nashville MSA were thus down 10.3%, if we look at the data more granularly, it reveals that the decline in Davidson County, which is Nashville proper, was actually even steeper at a 16% decline. Williamson, Wilson, and Dixon counties, by contrast, were pretty steady, and sales in Williamson were actually up about 1%. While falling sales may result in some downtick in home values, we're also still not really seeing that yet, but it's something to closely watch. The median home price in Nashville last month was $506,557, marking a 1.3% increase from the same figure last May, which was $499,996. Condo prices were about the same, roughly around $350,000. So to continue to sound like a broken record here on the Market Minute, the big story in the world of real estate is still locally and nationally is interest rates. June also saw some escalating wars and other geopolitical threats to our sort of mix of factors that we look at. Meanwhile, mortgage rates, haven't moved much in the past 30 days. We're still hanging in the sort of high sixes. I've seen 6.7, 6.8 in the last 24, 48 hours. But the big story there too is with all that background still really means that housing attainability has not improved at all. Prices are still up a little bit. Rates are still pretty high. And that's sort of the story of May market.
Yeah. Well, and Brandon, I'd like to add a couple of things because I've got some interesting data. Our May was down over last May, but our June is slightly up over last June. It was almost like a delayed for this year. Like now life gets in the way. It's summer. They've got to move. So I don't know on the title side, but we are seeing it just in the last 3 or 4 weeks pick up for closings for June. The other interesting statistic that we follow and track weekly is showings across the Middle Tennessee area in Real Tracks. And when you look back to like October, November, and December, we were hovering around 97,000 showings a week. Right now, we're right around 148,000 to 150,000 showings a week in Real Tracks, which is crazy. And then a lot of our agents are saying we're showing multiple homes, like 30, 40 homes to one buyer. They have a lot of choice, so they're spending a lot of time. And it's really more about the monthly payment. Again, watching this literally down to the last 24 hours, I think we locked one buyer in yesterday at a 655. There was a dip by the end of the day yesterday. But it is something to be watching right now, depending on what's happening over in the Middle East. But for market update, but property values are still slightly up, like you mentioned. So there's some positivity in the midst of everything. So
anecdotally, we're still seeing a really steady order count. I think a little bit of that is we work with a lot of developers, builders, and new construction is about 40% of what is selling right now. If you're a home builder, you have a really strong reason to want to get rid of your construction loan, which is at a high rate now. Whereas if you bought a house during the pandemic, you may be really enjoying the rate you locked in 2022. Right. So that is a big thing, is sort of the lockup that we're seeing. And we'll talk more about the, sort of strategies around, especially like, rates and how we're dealing with those with creative solutions. That'll be something we deal with here in a little bit.
But just a little update. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know how long the tunnel's going to be, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. Mortgage bankers say that the application rates for mortgages are up. That's very encouraging. And at NAR recently, their statistics say we have a 4 million home shortfall. of the current demand that's sitting out there on the sidelines waiting for the perfect moment to purchase. To put that in perspective, only 1.3 million new homes were built in this country last year. So that's kind of encouraging. So we just need to be ready when it does hit and just be sharp, and we'll get more on that throughout the program. Thanks.
Yeah, and what makes us kind of interesting too, I'm jumping in because we've got like the best panel here. If you know, we got building, we got legal, we got real estate, we got the whole shebang up here. But I look at inventory. We talked about this the other day that in Middle Tennessee we have it's like 45% new construction. But you head over to the East Coast, you go to New Jersey, Massachusetts, they're like 4 or 5% in new construction. They're so dense. There is no inventory there. So a lot of the bigger city market areas are struggling with inventory, while we now are sitting at 4 to 4.5 months of inventory, which makes us kind of unique. We're not as bad off as Texas and Arizona and Florida right now, but again, we're looking at seller concessions, our property values are holding, and opportunities to buy down interest rates and look at creative ways.
One of the things too I would say in the data is you see that, one other big headline is that a lot of people that are relocating, Nashville looks really attractive in the sense that we do have inventory now. So if you're in a higher price market where there's not a lot of new construction, there's just not a lot of inventory, that could help as far as our, attracting people per day numbers. So that's another, the data is complicated, but there are some good stories there. And, we're all going to be watching the trends very closely over the next 30 days. The July market minute will be interesting.
And so just kind of big picture, the concept that we're talking about here today is housing attainability, housing affordability. And so just to, kind of level set, HUD defines housing affordability as an occupant is paying no more than 30% of their gross income for housing costs, including utilities. So, for any person you meet, you can do that math. That should be their budget for housing if that housing is affordable.
Household. The house.
that?
You get the
Right.
house. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The median household income in Davidson County is about $75,000. This was in 2023. So if you take that gives you about $1,891 a month to spend on housing cost. I just did some rough math on that, and if you exclude taxes, insurance, utilities, just to make the math simple, which those are all real costs, that gets me to a mortgage of about $291 and a home price of about $364,500, which I think if you go try to buy a home for $364,500 in Davidson County, maybe you'll have some options, but it could be pretty tough. So that just kind of tells us about the problem that we're dealing with. The article that we have here in front of us talks about, and I'd like to get your reaction to this, it says a new report from the Metro Planning Department is putting numbers to a problem many Nashville residents know all too well, the city's housing affordability crisis. And it says this years-long study reveals that only 9% of Nashville neighborhoods are considered affordable for families making $100,000 a year. For Black and Hispanic families, the outlook's even more dire, with median-priced homes affordable in fewer than 1% of neighborhoods. And I guess just, to get started, give us your reaction to that article. Like, is that consistent with what you see out there?
And one of the things too, because most of the consumers that we're seeing coming to Middle Tennessee are wanting single family homes, and that's really a huge struggle to find a single family. We stepped up and built a lot of townhomes and condos, but the problem that we are seeing now in that space is the HOAs, the increased insurance cost. So while the sales price point might be lower, once you tack on the insurance monthly premium and then the HOA part of it, a $75,000. If you look a third of that $18,000, that's like $1,500 a month,
Right.
just for that payment. I mean, and it's more on the monthly payment. Where can we increase how much they have a month to spend and put them in what type of home or housing? And the lower priced housing or more affordable housing has additional costs to it. So we've kind of put ourselves into a pickle because we have even more sitting inventory on condos. I mean, we're pushing it like 7 months in condo. So, but again, we're looking ways that you can, THDA has down payment assistance. And I think Trey, get me wrong, is it 140 or 150,000 combined income or gross income for someone to qualify for THDA down payment assistance, get seller concessions to buy down the interest rate, because it's all about the monthly payment right now for affordability. How can we help make that more affordable?
Yeah, and I think that I was looking up. I think that our AMI's gone up since then. I think it's closer to 100,000 now. But I mean, we're going to get into this, but I think what Deborah's talking about goes more to attainability, right? It's like we've got affordability, which is its own issue, and then the attainability part is like, even if we make the house pricing attainable enough for families, it has to be in an area where they can get to work, where they've got to have some access to transit, to a grocery store, to a community that makes them feel safe. And I think that getting all of those factors together has become an issue. And this article, which we'll go more into it, but talks a lot about so what happened was we had a council member last year who proposed kind of an overhaul to the zoning code, which was, I believe, 4 by right on a pretty large swath of Nashville parcels, 4 units by right. And then we had a lot of people that were against that. And I think it sort of came out of nowhere to the community members. And so probably could have done that a little bit better. I think this, in response, another council member said, okay, hey, what about we study this? So they studied it, and a year later, at the end of March 2025, they came out with this housing and infrastructure study, which is what is giving us the base for this article. And that article didn't say anything that we didn't know. It just put numbers to it, and I'll stop here because I know we're going to go into different strategies and what Metro's doing, but I think that the attainability and the affordability are real issues.
Okay, so the members of this panel have quite a bit of involvement over the years with housing policy, especially when it comes to affordable and middle housing, at the state, local, and federal levels. So I want to give everybody a chance to first talk about what is the most important things that you are working on or seeing first at the federal level? Deb.
Okay, because I've been on Capitol Hill. I've been on Capitol Hill 3 times this year already, talking to anybody that'll listen. Right now, the biggest one, and I've spoken on this for 8 years now, the Mortgage Insurance Premium Fund, which is tied to FHA. And thank you for allowing me to talk about this on the podcast. That Mortgage Insurance Premium Fund was changed by Congress in 2013, June of 2013, as we came out of the recession, because we had foreclosures, and it was really to risk manage and to have enough built up. So we made some changes to FHA. The mortgage insurance premium stays for the life of the loan now, and it's at a pretty high rate. If you look at a $450,000 purchase, part of the monthly payment is the mortgage insurance premium, which just on $450 is like $220, and you go up to $600, $700, you're almost doubling that. And there is also an upfront cost that gets put into the mortgage insurance premium fund. The report that was issued in November of last year showed that fund was sitting at $142 billion. In 2013, Congress put in place that we should carry a reserve of 2% of FHA mortgages. 2%. That $142 billion was at 11.47%, so almost a 5x. It's sitting right now closer to $160 billion. Luckily, the government hasn't touched that money, supposedly. So it's sitting there, and it is, so it's almost at a 6x, 6 times the Congress mandate. FHA is controlled by Secretary Turner of HUD. So he could literally stroke a pen to do a pause on the mortgage insurance premium fund upfront fee, for let's say 12 months for owner occupant, first time home buyers, whatever program we want to do to help make housing more affordable. And that is a direct effect of the monthly payment. It doesn't cost the government anything, doesn't cost taxpayers anything, doesn't deplete the existing $160 billion. It just pauses adding into it, because for 12 years now, we've just been putting money in. So there's that one. The other one that we've talked about that I'm also very passionate on is seller concessions, the allowed seller concession amount based on the type of loan product a buyer uses. So this is right now, our property values are holding. Our sellers have equity. We don't really want to see property values drop. That's not good for us. But we want to help make housing affordable. Sellers are willing to give concessions to help buyers buy down the rate. So, Secretary HUD could also change the 6% that is allowed on FHA to say, and Trey and I have talked about this with the builders side, the Home Builders Association, of just going a flat 10% across the board allowed seller concessions. It doesn't cost the government, doesn't cost the taxpayer. This is something that the seller would pay on behalf of the buyer. So voluntarily, correct, and negotiated. If you look at conventional loans, if you're putting up to 10% down, like right at 10%, 5 to 10%, you can only get 3% in seller concessions given to you. If you go between 10% and 25%, you can get 6%. You put more money down. So you are a buyer that has more cash to put down. The seller can give more in concessions, up to 9%. So you have all of these differences. Bill Pulte, who is the secretary, who's over FHFA, which is Fannie and Freddie, also doesn't need a Congress to act. He can stroke a pen and make that change on allowed concessions, the same as Turner. So two immediate solutions for monthly payment affordability, because buyers could use the money to buy down the interest rate. Whenever I talk about this, everybody's like, wow, that makes so much sense, until you pull in a mortgage banker and they buy down the interest rate. Who's making the money right now with the higher interest rates? And in the last 25 years, when you look at the spread between the 10-year Treasury yield, which is like right now, I think at 4.3, there's usually a 1.75 to 2% spread. It's running at almost 3. I mean, it's pushing, there's a bigger spread in there, and it's the banks holding the rate. But again,
and
who's
I think a lot of
buying our
economists
treasury
would say
bonds?
it's-
There's so much like tied together, because who's buying our treasury bonds right now outside of the country? So if that rate drops, the buyers outside the country stop buying it. And where's the money from buying the treasury bonds going? It's going to the treasury. So there's so much intertwined there. But again, my big one on the Hill has been seller concessions and mortgage insurance premium.
To add a little more perspective to that, the mortgage insurance fund Debra's referring to is only to ensure the 20% that the buyer's not putting down between the conventional and the sales price. So you could take that 150-60 billion and multiply that by 5, and that's how many homes would have to be in foreclosure before this fund would be exhausted. And there's not a crisis there. To give you an idea of the math on that, if you take an FHA loan on our median price home in the United States at $429,800, to say $430,000, if you eliminated the mortgage insurance program for 12 to 18 months, that would save the buyer $280.41 a month, if you count the front end and the monthly fee. And if you allowed us to go from 6% to 10% contribution to buy down that rate further, that would save an additional $277. So you're looking at over almost $560 a month. That doesn't cost the government a thing. And how many people could, how close would $560 a month put people to buying their own home today?
And it seems like those sort of work in tandem, right? I mean, that allowing 10% or a higher seller contribution then reduces the risk of the PMI that you're talking about as well. I think at the federal level it's really interesting right now, and I'm not really quick to criticize, because I think the left has great ideas, the right has great ideas, and it's hard when these things move really slowly, and so you're trying to get something to happen quickly.
Get in the middle.
Yeah, you're trying to, but right now I think it's really interesting because we have, an administration that seems to, they're taking a lot of money away. I mean, over, I think, 40% in the current proposed budget for things like, HUD, for people working at HUD. A lot of these people are counselors that help our local governments be able to get access to these loans that help out in these different programs, which then just further slows things down. And we also are seeing a big reduction in Section 8 and available funding for our homeless population in those areas. And this is a very tricky interwoven. So that part is very stressful, I think, to our local communities who are trying to really help those who are most in need. And yet at the same time, I think we have an administration who really wants to relax regulation and help, if our local government will opt in, if they will take advantage of changing zoning codes and relaxing things so that builders can more easily build, then that's great, because that will allow them to gain access to more money. But some of those things are there for a reason, because they've helped prevent things like redlining and these discriminatory tactics, which are clearly borne out in this study that we have. So I guess I just want to say there's a lot, I think, going on, and a lot of it's good. I think now we have a YIMBY caucus in DC. I've only been on the Hill once this year, but and I think there is a lot of good momentum despite bad headlines, but there's also a lot that's being cut from it at the same time. So
one thing that is encouraging in bipartisanship in Washington, a real estate caucus has been formed between members of Democrat and Republican Party to discuss these and other measures. And I think Congressman John Rose just passed a bill to eliminate the robocallers predatoring on mortgage applications, which is really good, because I just despise those calls. But going back to the purpose of a buy down, and I encourage every realtor to look at buying your interest rate down for your clients before asking for a price concession. It's a huge difference. To give you an idea, on that same $430,000 house, let's go from a 7% regular rate to a 6%. That's going to cost us $17,000, which we would probably pay to do. And that's going to save that buyer $278 a month in monthly payments. If we just said, here's the $17,200, take it off the price, it's only going to save them $112 a month in monthly payment. So you've got $165 a month in spending power with the same money being used to buy the rate down than lowering the sales price. So please look at that in making your offers to your buyers, because it's very helpful. And if they won't do it, we will.
Love it. Let's have the same question just at the state level, and I know there may be less happening at the state level, but kind of tell us, what do you see happening at the state level, and how is that impacting people that are looking to become buyers in Tennessee?
Well, what we're seeing as builders is, of course, it's a huge infrastructure shortage throughout the state. People are having to now move into the third ring counties for affordability, which those aren't really mentioned in the MSA in most cases, but the growth levels are staggering. And those communities are putting growth moratoriums on because they don't have water, they don't have sewer, or they just plain out don't want it. And infrastructure needs are a huge concern. And at the state level, and could be federal too if it needed to be, but zoning is the key to affordability in any department. And until we are able to give our elected officials political cover, we will never have effective zoning statewide, because anybody that's for it will not get reelected, typically, unless they're in an industrial district.
Yeah, and the other thing to look at too, like with Davidson County, I mean, the regulations, zoning regulations are blanket. It's all the same across the entire county, and you have more dense areas, you have more land areas. So I think, and that's kind of local and state level, but allowing for variances within a certain area of different regulations or less regulations, where there isn't as much density in there as well. One of the things that we're working on at the federal, state, and local level is also government-owned land. And we're our company's partner with Realtor.com, and they're pushing a big, housing, new construction initiative, and doing heat maps to look at where we have some existing infrastructure, have either state, federal, or local land that's owned, that they could partner with builders, so we wouldn't have the cost of the land up front. We can build, again, something that is affordable housing in that respect. So.
Yeah, and I think what the state has done, albeit it may have been tied to vouchers, but I think that they have done a decent job of coming in and providing some disaster recovery, which that goes to housing, right? The cheapest affordable housing is to keep people in the houses that they're in. So if they get destroyed, like these major issues that we've had, particularly in East Tennessee, that displaces people, then we have a bigger issue. So I think they've done a good job to give some funds for that, but that's more of a reactive nature. I think that, it would be great if the state would establish kind of a flexible fund at the state level where they could come in and really help in various areas. I think some other states have done that, but whether it's down payment assistance or helping with developers. Also, I believe, I'm not sure, but I think here we are not permitted to, require a certain percentage of a project to be affordable. And I think that there could be some loosening of that, but like tie it to money. And we have to ultimately, sometimes I think far left advocates want to blame the developer, but we have to build more. There is no way to get out of this without that being a major component. And one thing that I see us doing just in Nashville or in general is we have to give developers more units to allow them to make units affordable. No one is going to go out. The private market the government doesn't want to be building all these things, so we rely on the private market, and the private market ultimately has to put food on their table. And while we don't want excessive greed there, we have to allow them to be able to build higher. And in Nashville, we've even talked about this in terms of, if we had codes where structures in the downtown area could go higher, but require a prettier, a wrapped garage or a more pretty pedestrian area at the bottom, then it's a trade-off. So I think that we could work on looking at some larger initiatives like that at the state level.
The other one that I've asked and requested of THDA, FHA has higher loan limits for metro areas. THDA's maximum purchase price in the state of Tennessee is $400,000, and I said we got to go to $475,000. We have quite a bit. We have just in the outlying right around Davidson County, we have some in that $450,000. And if we can piggyback that with THDA, if you don't want to raise $475,000 across the state, because they have money in the fund, I said, and it doesn't take an act of state Congress, the THDA can make this decision to raise that purchase limit from $400,000 to $475,000. Just that extra $75,000 would open up a considerable amount of single family inventory. And then again, when they have the money for down payment, we can get seller concessions. We can get more people in houses just by tweaking that $75,000.
That seems like a no-brainer. Like, what pushback have you gotten on that?
Zoning.
We've kind of talked about that, but here was this was the comment, which I love THDA. So because it's a great program, the average sales price of the houses that are purchased using THDA is, I think they said like $360,000. So they're using the entire state, and yes, maybe if you go to an outlying county,
the 5 metropolitan areas,
but you pull out the 5 metropolitan areas, that average is probably pushed right at the 400. And how many more people could they help by going from 400 to 475? So they're talking about it. I think more of us bringing it up, talking to them about it. They can just literally have a meeting and make this change. And the fund is there, and it renews and they can pull from it. So they have funds right now that could really help us going into the fall.
But going back to the public land, between federal, state, and local, there are just millions of acres, I'm sure. But no one knows the needs of our city's housing better than planning departments. And, if they have, I'll just use an example of a 10-acre parcel out here on Hermitage Avenue. RM9 would hold 90 units. Put it out for bid to developers. We're going to offer this land. You must sell for a price that a such and such income level can afford, meaning your sales price will be this, and it needs to have this, and let the bidding begin, and let the builder that buys it provide it. And then you're not doing the public-private audit partnership. And I think planning commissions could state the need. Of course, you can't have the highest possible density on every piece of land, or else we'd have, like Chicago with towers, and we'd be filming TV series in them. But, I think the planning commissions know best what type of housing is needed in which area, and we could take the government land and offer it accordingly and put it out for bid, and not necessarily take the high bid. Take the bid that provides the best value to the consumer.
Yeah, and Brandon and I lived in a condo building that a long time ago downtown, and actually several people at Bass went and bought, but they had some affordability restrictions. They were like 5 years. Those don't work because, and shout out to Bob Mendez, who's done a great job, I think, of developing, of getting in on the East Bank. I can't remember, is it like 99 years? It's a very long time, the affordability restrictions that are on there. That works because when Braden and I were there, what was happening is, kids going to Vanderbilt with trust funds were buying these affordable homes. We really have to reach these people who are struggling, and not just struggling, but I mean, just our teachers, our workforce in the city.
Yeah, but you have to be very careful not to put them in a box where their private property rights of ownership are compromised either. So it's a delicate balance.
Yeah, TIF was, most of the ones we see are 5 or 7 year restrictions, and the restriction falls off. But, having closed a lot of those early, Viridian, there was a lot of early projects downtown that had TIF financing, and I don't think it really was successful, at least the ones we saw, that we closed a lot of them, because what would happen is, again, you've got an MBA student at Vanderbilt who has no income, so therefore the guidelines are all about income. So if I've got a $5 million stock portfolio my grandfather gave me, that's irrelevant as long as I'm not taking money out of it. So I can qualify under this affordable guideline, buy this tax subsidized unit basically for 25% below market, wait 5 years when I graduate from business school, and now I've just come into a huge windfall, and now I can sell it, and there's no restrictions because they just went away. So,
well, and I think, we don't, you want to be able to create that generational wealth, but we're talking about people who don't have homes, or people who are not going to be able to live in the area at all. If we put, and I haven't looked at any studies, so I'm not sure, but if we put a 15-year restriction or a 20-year restriction, yeah, that is restricting it some, but I think about it like putting a collar on stock. You're still going to be able to accumulate some wealth. It just won't be at this rapid decline, but rapid increase, but we're not trying to get you from 0 to 100. We're trying to get people with shelter over their heads in an area where they can also work and contribute to society. They can take that next step, in my opinion, to get somewhere else. We just have to prevent the units actually going to someone who does not need the unit.
Well, based on that, my industry or association will probably chastise me for saying this, but years ago, Metro government was toying with the idea of inclusionary zoning on a voluntary basis. And of course, that didn't really go over real well.
Meaning that developers would be able to, would be putting affordable units in
within
there.
But if you combine that with transferable development credits, I'll just do a quick scenario. Let's say we go in one part of town, I won't say any one part, and we build 100 units for $199,000, then we would get X number of credits just given to us by the watchdog agency. We can sell them, do whatever we want to with them. Somebody wants to build a building in downtown Nashville and they need 50 units affordable, they can buy my credits. And I'm gonna go build more.
It's like
and
the carbon. It's like the carbon credits market, but for real estate.
But I may go build a $250,000 unit and sell it for $199 because the money's guaranteed.
Is that a thing that happens? Is there
Yes.
places that do that now?
There's places in Maryland, and it's just transferable development credits, but it's managed by the private sector.
I like that.
Yep.
And the mayor's office now, I believe, as part of the new budget, is going to have somebody in their office who is specifically focused on this. And if I'm thinking right, I think the mayor, in the past, the budgets have been around 30 million or so in the affordable housing in that, allotment. And the mayor's put in, I believe, 45 million for affordable housing initiatives. So hopefully some of things like that will be reconsidered and looked at. I definitely think zoning's has to be looked
One
at.
of the things that we can do, if we can keep people from driving further to where they can afford, the transit cost and the burden on transit is a lot less too. COVID gave us a big break, guys. When they allowed people to work from home, it allowed people to move to Shelbyville and Manchester and Tullahoma and Lawrenceburg and all that and work from home. And now they're slowly but surely being called back. And that's been the boondoggle on our transit system and our interstates and roads. So the more people we can bring back closer to Nashville, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, anyone who's self-employed understands. We know, we get someone in. I've probably told this story before, but we get somebody into Wagonville. The first thing that we encourage them to do is buy a house. We still have not convinced Catherine. If anybody would like to, she's in the back.
We see you.
But we convince them to buy a house. They go, they look, they move to Murfreesboro, and we know we're like, that person's going to leave. And that's okay. I mean, because we still want them to create generational wealth, and that is part of our mission. However, that shouldn't be the case. And that's the case, by the way, if they only have to work 3 days a week in the office or 4 days a week in the office, because it is a miserable drive.
Yeah. So tell us, we're talking a little bit about these, opportunities for, federal, state, metro-owned property. What do you see that the public is missing about the potential opportunities with those properties, especially with partnerships? I know there's been some talk about the metro list of all the properties that seems mysterious, and I've never seen it. But there's good software now. We can sort heat maps and see what's state-owned land, and just what are your thoughts on what opportunities? And I know, Trey, you kind of mentioned this idea of maybe bidding out some of those things, which, the reason you don't see a lot of 1,000, 1,200 square foot homes is because land prices are so high. And if you drive around East Nashville, the homes that were built in the 40s and 50s, there's a lot of 1,200, 1,400 square foot homes, and those that just doesn't work right now because the land is so expensive.
Well, the other big hindrance is zoning. And if you want to do a community, regardless of the price of the land at all, you're going to have 100 people show up saying no and 5 saying yes. We've just got to get more involved. And people that need housing and are advocates for housing need to get involved in the system and show up and be counted. And because the ones that don't want it are showing up and they're being counted.
Yeah, and that's you guys, realtors. I mean, you have no idea how powerful your voice is. And when Debra says, I went to the Hill 3 times this year, that's not because Debra's special. That's because she has stepped up and said, I will go. I mean, you can go to your local association and say, I'm willing to go, I'm willing to lead. And I guarantee you'll be sitting in front of a congressman with a voice. So just use your voice.
Well, and I saw it in action last year. I was actually blown away because I was very concerned coming with August 17th on VA loans, and buyer agent compensation was not an allowable. And in March and in May, the 2 times I was on the Hill last year, that was something that I was really pushing on. I said, because you're going to limit veterans' ability to buy a home. And I think Trey and I, we were up there talking to everybody and anybody. I said, and the VA, again, the secretary of the VA, who's over the VA loans, could stroke a pen and make the change, make it an allowable. And June 11th last year, and one of our congressmen, the 5th district, signed the letter along with 10 others and sent it to the VA, and then within several days became an allowable. So I was like, oh wow, okay.
And
like
that's politics. That's politics at work, right?
But it's because they aren't thinking about it. And then I did a backgrounder for our congressman on the whole GI Bill and the VA loan and how it came about and the purpose of it. So they asked for that. They were listening. So that was encouraging, I think. And when we talk about local, we talk about the local level and the local land, because Metro owns land, the state owns land. And this is where they commit some resources to that land to help with the infrastructure of the street. They maybe no impact fees here. Which builders want to come in and pick up some lots in here and build at a certain price point and piggyback that with DHDA. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. We just have to be creative about it. But there's a lot of different parts that have to work together to make some of these things happen. But I don't know if they're thinking about it or not. We actually had one agent, and this was in 2015. He won an award. He was a young realtor in our office, Ryan Turbeville, and he did a presentation in 2015 to Metro.
I was there for that.
Were you? And he won at MBA. We were at MBA,
yeah.
And he proposed. There's all this acreage up on Fern, and he had a full proposal of what it would cost the city and how we could build some houses up there that are close and affordable, and it's still just sitting there. And I was like, this is 10 years ago that we've talked about it, and it's just not gone anywhere. So,
well, that was going to be a question that may not be clear to some listeners, is the land that you guys are talking about, like, it's not like Trey is going to go build a community in Beeman Park. Like, these are in town, just undeveloped lots.
It could be just a vacant, dormant school building or healthcare center or something just laying on the side of the road.
Sometimes it can be
it's 8 acres, 7 acres. I mean, it's not a huge parcel, but it's enough to put some housing there. And again, we have the different, it's like one overlay of regulations that I think we have to look at different areas. And does Metro make some concessions there to get the builders for us to go up there and build?
Well, and what's great about a lot of those parcels is that they are along corridors, and so corridors are some of the cheapest areas to build affordable housing because they're already they have some of the better infrastructure. And also shout out to former Metro Council member Pete Westerholm, who's here and who chairs the Barnes Fund. Barnes Fund is a commission or council or the Barnes Housing Fund Commission. And I know Brandon and I were just down there a few weeks ago and doing a lot of, this is heavy work and it doesn't move quickly. So we really appreciate advocates who are out there trying to make it work. So thank you.
Okay, so a big topic locally right now is the Metro Council. It looks like the council is going to be shrinking from 40 members to 20 members, not voluntarily. This is basically coming, action from the state. Although I will say a lot of people, even on the Metro Council locally, we do have the third largest Metro Council in the United States right now. So there are a lot of people who think it's not a terrible idea to shrink the council. It probably is a little unwieldy, but you would sort of rather it not be coming from the top down, rather bottom up.
We want to govern ourselves.
That's right. This is reverse federalism here. But if the chance does happen, and this does happen, what do you see this? How is this going to play out? Should we have a single Metro Council with as much power over zoning? That's one thing we have talked about. One of the things when Trey's talking about political cover is that if I'm in Pete Westerholm's position as the District 6 councilman a few years ago, anything that involves zoning has to start with him. He's going to have a whole lot of pressure to oppose almost every project. So if the council changes, maybe how does that look? Does the single Metro Council person still have that power? Do we have some concept of maybe we have still council at large members who maybe take on that role?
Could this be an opportunity to make changes?
I think, we're partnered with the Chamber of Commerce, so we travel to different cities. This year we were in Charlotte and Austin, Denver, and looked at, and I run an organization, a pretty big organization, and people want representation and they want to be represented, and that's where we have with the 40 and the 5 at large. I do think we need to keep the 5 at large because the 5 at large then cover the whole area. administrative support staff to the council is very minimal. It's
Actually
almost
non-existent.
Non-existent. And as a CEO and running, and they're part-time. I go to a council meeting. It starts at 5:30. It goes till 10 at night during the week. To me,
Somebody who's
it's
often
hard,
been at work all day has already put in a full day.
The city is growing. We're getting ready to have the stadium open, the new stadium open up. We are going to be a hotbed for the Super Bowl for a lot of traveling in for. So is it the right time though to be strategic and everybody come together and look at how we can represent all of our constituencies, but give the resources to the council to full-time salaried position and supports, administrative support.
You see a city
But
like
it's a fine
Austin,
line,
which has a
but-
council. A council
yes.
person in Austin is he's getting a salary of like $120,000, has legislative support
And it's a
staff.
full-time job.
It's a full-time job, and you're getting
Commitment.
really committed professionals in that role.
Our governors and mayors have a salary, and a district council person has a lot of people they're answering to on a daily basis, and for really health insurance and a few dollars a day, and we can do better than that.
And I know, Trey, I believe it was you who had mentioned, what you'll hear a lot, I think, at the city level is, hey, what are these at-large seats even doing, right? You'll hear council members have their own districts and they're providing constituent services. And as a at-large, you don't have that. And I think the idea is that you're thinking bigger picture. And so Trey had this idea of what if the at-large were responsible for kind of what goes where, the zoning, getting rid of the councilmatic
courtesy.
Is it matic or manic? What is it, P? Is it manic or matic? Okay, we're going to go with
Councilmatic.
cat. So the council, but getting rid of the councilmatic courtesy, because if you think about it, and this is what I find, whether it's on a nonprofit, whether it's in a company, whether it's at government, we're trying to look at a city from up here, and we've got people who are looking at it in their own areas. I think those individual council members need to have a strong voice about their area, but there needs to be a layer up here who's looking and saying, okay, well, I'm not sure I care if these folks on your street who are going to reelect you are really upset. I want to provide some of that cover for you and say, at an overall city level, we have to get density in this area, in this area, in this area. So I thought that was a great idea.
District council person the political cover, and it does look at the needs of the city as a whole rather than one particular area.
It's a little bit more like having a U.S. Senate concept overlaid with the House, which the senators' idea is they're looking out more for the national interest, whereas House members are looking more for their state interest.
And the at-large then also lose a little criticism, like, what are you doing? I'm doing this.
Okay, well, guys, is there anything else on this topic that you think we haven't addressed today that you want to get out there?
I just want to encourage every realtor to get involved in your community. Go to the community meetings, especially when you see those little zoning hearing signs pop up. Go and see who's there and play a part in it and be a voice.
And, there's a saying that all politics is local politics. I can't remember, somebody said that to me recently. But with that said, I know who it was. It was Stephanie Coleman on our Climbing the Charts. But anyway, she was arguing that it is changing. But what I would say is that, as a realtor, you have so much power. You're on the ground. You know what's going on. Become involved. Pick an area. Become really involved in that neighborhood association. That's going to help your business. So it's a selfish, but it's also going to get you more passionate about these larger issues, and I guarantee you'll move on up the
Got one
chain.
other cute one. If you want to see change, run for office. If you don't want to run for office, write a check to someone that will.
It's a good one.
Or Safe Haven. Just connect with me.
All right, guys, so that is a wrap for us today. Submit any ideas for future episodes. Oh, wait, John Brittle. Yes, sir. Bring it.
I'm a local realtor, 37 years now. I spent 5 to 8 years going to every Metro Council meeting, going to every planning department meeting, going to every EPA meeting, going to every historic meeting. And
You want to switch places?
I felt for these council members, like Mr. Westphal here. Realtors need to get involved. This is on the realtor getting involved. I hired away a Metro planner one time from Metro Planning, caught grief about it for several years, taking Brenda Bernard's over to the private sector. But if you don't get involved, the vocal minority of mad neighbors are going to be the only voices the council hears. I really feel for the planning staff. I really do. I've got some friends down there. They do what they do based on the public outcry. They have to. Their bosses tell them, we don't want to hear this. People yelling and screaming at us, throwing fruit and vegetables at us. So just more affordable housing, workforce housing, attainable housing would work its way through zoning if the planning staff had a goal of getting us that housing, not a goal of rolling over for the local minority who don't want any development in their district. I like this idea a lot about letting the council at large handle the density issues around the county. I've got something right now, and by the way, I left that world because I got tired of fighting neighborhood associations who didn't care about anything other than their personal wants and needs, which weren't any wants and needs. They didn't care about affordable housing or workforce housing in Davidson County, which is what our city government ought to have to do. A couple of things. One, they ought to be paid a lot of money. If we're going to get crunched from 40 by 20 because of some aggravated state legislators, we ought to take all that money and put it towards staff of the Metro Council, beefing up the planning staff. I've got a development that I'm the listing agent on right now that is delayed and will cause me to have to aggregate 5 landowners, and it's all getting pushed back because we can't get on the council member schedule because she has so much in her district being developed. And they ought to, when that happens, these 5 council members at large ought to be assigned to a county. So now we have 2 people or even 3 people handling those meetings. She just doesn't have enough days to get these meetings done. So I'm now going to have to get extensions on everything because we can't get on the agenda. And so if we want affordable housing, if we want housing attainability, and I love that word, what do y'all think about that?
Angie told me to say attainability instead of affordability. Yep.
We need to make housing in the county attainable, or we're going to be sunk by our traffic morass that we're already sinking into. But every time I try to get some affordable worked into some deal, the people who fought it were the people in the neighborhood. I was getting fought, not only by the people who'd already built expensive houses there, and they didn't want any more small houses built, but I was getting fought by the people with small houses who didn't want, everybody's against it.
Yeah.
Realtors need to get out there and support development all over the city. Because if we don't help the council members and the planning staff, then they're just going to throw their hands up and they're going to say no to it.
Yeah. And so for our listeners, I just wanted to say that, so John Brittle, who's been a real estate agent for 37 years in our community as a developer, also is a huge contributor to charity through his nonprofit with the Whiskey House. Had at this point, which is we have to get more, as realtors, we need everybody to get out there. One, inform your clients. Let them know this is not their backyard. I heard Mayor O'Connell recently at the State of Homelessness Symposium. He had a great quote. It is not your backyard. It is someone else's backyard. It is the state's backyard. It is the city's backyard. It is some future resident's backyard who needs it. It is not your backyard that you are generally speaking of when you say that. And also, educate your clients in that when you walk down Belmont, when you walk through Richland, when you walk in these gorgeous neighborhoods, there is lots of multifamily that was there before that you're just not noticing, but it is there. And so we need realtors to show up at these neighborhood meetings. We need you to bring your friends, your clients, and bring the YIMBYs, because until the YIMBYs are louder than the NIMBYs, it's going to be tough.
And for those not in the know, YIMBYs are yes in my backyard.
NIMBYs are not in my backyard.
All right. Well, does anyone else have anything for today? All right. Well, thanks a lot. So thanks to our...
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
Since I'm just going to slide this in on the podcast so it can be mentioned. Capital gains. Capital gains tax. We have actually a large amount of people sitting on homes right now where the gain exceeds the 250 single or 500 combined. That capital gains amount has not been increased since 1997. 1997. So that is another talking point that we are doing up on Capitol Hill to look at maybe upping that a little bit, because especially for Nashville, we have a lot of people that bought they bought a house for $100,000 and now they can't sell because they won't be able to pay the tax. So on it.
I'll say
The office is pushing doubling that limit.
One last quick thing.
Yes.
For the realtors who will listen to this over the next months and years, the easiest thing for you to do is make an investment in our town. Debra Beagle is
Absolutely. And because you hit double Hall of Fame this year, wasn't it? You did. You hit double.
these simple things that she talked about, some of these wins, those are done because realtors are out lobbying for landowner rights and homeownership. Nobody else is doing that. The home builders on occasion, and the mortgage people on occasion. But the big money is being spent by realtors, and that comes from all the individual realtors out there contributing.
And additionally, from John Brittle, for our listeners, I just want to say that if you don't want to get involved yourself, make sure that you're donating to RPAC, because that is the real estate voice
The
that
advocacy,
gets
yeah.
heard. Everyone knows that the realtors have a strong voice. When I've been at the state level, when we've been in DC, it's very clear there will be a question that will come up. Well, what do the realtors think about it? What do the home builders think about it? So contribute if you don't want to be active.
investing, yeah.
And
Yeah.
thank you guys for sticking with us. I know that
you.
we've gone a little bit over. Steve, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So that is a wrap for us today. Submit any ideas for future episodes and real estate mailbag questions to mailbag@wagonwheeltitle.com. Thanks to our panelists again, and to everyone for being here with us today and for listening to another episode of the Real Estate Mailbag.
All right, now y'all stay around and talk as long as you want. I just wanted to let y'all go if you want to.
Thank you.